Primal is one of those shows that went under a lot of people's radars, and man, it really deserves more recognition, especially when you consider how highly Gendy Tartakovsky's other works like Dexter's Lab and Samurai Jack are regarded. It's this prehistoric fantasy about a Neanderthal man known only as Spear, who is out hunting one day when his wife and 2 kids are killed by a group of what look like Carnotaurus. We've only known this character for a matter of minutes at this stage, but already this is a punch straight to the gut, and it makes you feel absolutely awful. Minutes after that, Spear stumbles on a T-Rex nursing her 2 newborn babies, both of whom nuzzle up to Spear and there's loads of wav and waddles until chomp, those bastard carnies are back and make a snack out of the T-Rex babies. If you thought you felt bad after seeing Spear's kids get eaten, well, you feel even worse now. So Spear and the T-Rex, referred to as Fang because it has one long protruding tooth sticking out of its mouth, form this kind of alliance. It's uneasy at first, but they soon become best friends and really effective partners. And the story goes from there, with the pair embarking on a different adventure every episode. And it's the pairing of these two that really give the show the substance that it has. Like, we see how they go from the two hilariously competing for food in one episode to intensely relying on each other. One thought that kept popping into my head though was about how the T-Rex is often portrayed and behaves like a dog would. And there are quite a few occasions where I question if a dinosaur would actually behave with that kind of loyalty, or would it just bite your fucking head off and walk away? It wasn't a thought that ruined anything for me, but somehow I was aware of it. Like in many nature documentaries, you see how if you challenge an animal when there's food in the equation, they will rip you to pieces without hesitation. So in the app where they're bickering for food, I did wonder how Spear was still staying alive. But really, that was my only criticism, and it was a small one. The rest was just gorgeous animation, brilliant little stories, all told without a single line of dialogue, and that takes skill. And characters that you really cared about. It is brutal as well, but that is the whole point of the show, and I'll come back to that later. It had several excellent episodes, with maybe only 1 or 2 that fell a little short of its own very high standard. My personal favorite was probably the ep which starts out with our characters being chased by a pack of Deinonychus or Utahraptors or whatever they're supposed to be, managing to escape them only to become the prey of these awesome looking bats. Spear gets taken by the bats back to their giant anthill-like lair, and Fang has to figure out a way to get in there to save him. It's a really simple premise, but stupendously well done and massively entertaining. I love the creature design of the bats, the alpha of which is this giant spider, or a spider that at least cohabits with them, but the color scheme would seem to indicate that they're at least somehow related. Another brilliant episode starts with an aging mammoth falling behind from its group to be picked off and killed by Spear and Fang. They've only killed it to provide themselves with food, as you would in the wild, but there's a really nice moment where Spear feels guilty about killing this once magnificent beast before the two themselves are hunted by the mammoth pack, who it turns out are searching for their fallen relative's tusk as a memento to place in remembrance in their elephant graveyard. It's really lovely, and it was the first time that I became aware of this reoccurring theme in the show, asking where sentimentality and attachment fits in this brutal world of survival of the fittest. I also loved how it was happy to be a fantasy first and foremost and didn't make any attempt to be accurate, and how it really pushed those fantasy elements really quite far. For example, after Spear and Fang discover this small paradise-like lagoon, they get taken by these monkey people and thrown into this vicious fighting tournament where the combatants drink this black fluid to turn them into Hulk-like beasts before they proceed to knock the crap out of each other. Fang gets thrown in there and pretty beaten up, and in a last-ditch attempt to save him, Spear guzzles a whole bowlful of this stuff and becomes this super strong, distorted version of himself. There's a chase with a zombie Apatosaurus, which just seems unkillable. We've got an encounter with a coven of witches that suck out people's life forces in another one of my favorite apps. Like in this one, there's this one witch who looks into their past. She freezes time, which looks gorgeous, by the way, and she looks into their past and sees how they've both lost their young and bonds with them because she lost her daughter as well. I think the weakest episode was probably the one called The Night Feeder, where there's this unseen predator who comes after nightfall. We never really get to see it, only ever seeing a point of view shot from the first person, and we see how overpowered it is, like slashing Triceratops to shreds with a single blow. It kills a saber-toothed tiger in the opening scene like nobody's business. And our two heroes end up beating it with fire, and that's pretty much it. It's a little disappointing, that one, especially as the creature is so built up throughout the duration of the episode. Like, all you want to do is see the thing. Like, it must be super powerful, right? Look, it must be huge or super fearsome, or it must have some kind of special ability or some kind of magic going on that it can just breeze through all these other creatures. But when you do see it, it just looks like this kind of raptor or Dilophosaurus type thing. And yeah, so that one was a little bit of a letdown. Actually, looking at this still right now, I'm starting to wonder if it was a Therizinosaurus, like in Jurassic World Dominion, with those big claws. Like, check out these big claws right here. And yes, I know a Therizinosaurus is supposed to be a herbivore, but, you know, it didn't matter in Jurassic World Dominion, did it? Some might find Primal a little slow too, but there is a difference between slow and boring, and I never found this boring. As I was watching some of the slower scenes, just taking in the setting and the ambient sound, I was actually really reminded of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Not the 2008 3D CG one, but the 2003 2D series. And I looked it up and I was surprised to find that actually this was made by Gendy Tartakovsky too. So that's a series that I really want to rewatch actually. I might do a video on it. I really remember there's one episode that really sticks in my mind where Mace Windu, where he goes absolutely crazy with his force powers, which we've never really seen before. That one was absolutely epic and it really sticks in my mind. I really want to watch it again. But I think that the slow ambient style is really just a trademark of what Gendy Tartakovsky does. It's just one of those things. I think you either take it or leave it, and personally, I really like it. If it's done well, slow can be just as good. Then there's the last episode of Primal, where our pair come across this woman who's clearly escaped some kind of slavery. She's got these shackles around her neck and she's obviously pretty traumatized. And it's the first time that we've seen a real out-and-out human in the series since Spear's family died. And of course, it kind of upsets the balance between Spear and Fang as Spear begins to find a sort of a kindred spirit in this woman. But of course, that's not going to last because these monkey people show up and snatch the woman up and then escape off to sea with her. And it's here that the only spoken word in the whole show is said as Spear utters the name Mira. And it's a real Rosebud moment and sets up a really great cliffhanger. But my one overarching thought when it comes to Primal was that because there's no dialogue to force feed you a narrative or a message, you kind of have to figure it out for yourself, which makes it all the more effective. And then when you ask what was the point of that show to 10 different people, you might get 10 different answers because it's pretty subjective. To some, it might just be about cool monster fights in a kind of a Conan the Barbarian kind of way. But to me, as I sort of touched on before, it was really about where things like love and friendship fit in a cold, unfeeling sort of survival of the fittest scenario. And the best example of what I'm saying is, at the beginning, those Carnotaurus didn't care that those kids were somebody's kids. To the Carnotaurus, they were just an easy meal. So I wonder if season 2 will go the way of Apocalypto, where the characters get dragged off to the ancient civilization where, it's all really brutal and they're sacrificing humans left, right, and center. And Spear and Fang have to rescue Mira from this ancient, brutal civilization. So as I'm pretty sure you can tell, I absolutely love Primal. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you check it out. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel because I'm definitely going to be spending a bit of time going through season 2 as well. I'm really looking forward to it. So until then, feel free to get out of my head and I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching and cheerio, bye!